Let us begin with the awareness that time itself is not just a measurement of hours and days. Time is a living current. It flows, it bends, and it carries with it subtle qualities that are not always visible to the naked eye. This is why ancient traditions, spiritual practices, and even modern psychology place such importance on cycles, seasons, and moments of alignment. There are days that simply feel heavier, and others that feel lighter. Some periods pass unnoticed, while others carry a sense of urgency or possibility. The dates from September 23rd to 27th represent one such window, a spiritual opening that invites transformation. When we talk about a window of energy, it is not superstition. It is the recognition that the human mind and the universe are deeply interconnected. Consider how your body instinctively responds to the changing seasons, the mood shift that comes with winter's darkness, the renewed vitality in spring, or the heightened activity of summer. In the same way, time itself creates energetic climates that shape the way we think, feel, and act. During this 5-day period, the energy tilts toward breaking cycles, clearing away stagnation, and opening the path to renewal. It is not that magic is in the date itself, but rather that collective rhythms align in a way that amplifies intention. Think for a moment of the ocean. The tide rises and falls, not because the ocean itself chooses, but because the moon exerts its pull. In the same way, these dates are like a tide that lifts or lowers the energy available to you. If you choose to align with the rise, you gain momentum without extra effort. If you remain unaware, the tide passes, and you may feel as though nothing has changed. Awareness, therefore, is the first key, seeing time not as a flat line, but as a wave you can ride. It is during such windows that writing becomes more than a habit. When you pick up a pen and inscribe your intentions on paper, you are not merely recording thoughts. You are imprinting them into the fabric of this energetic tide. The reason so many people fail to break free from cycles of limitation is not that they lack talent or desire, but that they miss the importance of timing. They attempt to plant seeds in frozen soil, or to harvest when the fruit is still green. But when you act during a moment of spiritual alignment, even the smallest seed can take root and grow beyond expectation. This is why I emphasize these specific dates. It is not about fear, nor about chasing some external miracle. It is about recognizing that the universe presents you with currents, and you must learn to swim with them rather than against them. By choosing to write your intention between September 23rd and 27th, you are choosing to step into a current that favors breaking chains, dissolving the weight of negative interference, and releasing new possibilities. It is a chance to harness momentum rather than fight resistance. Now, consider the psychological aspect. When you set aside time within a defined window, your mind sharpens its focus. If I tell you to write this anytime, you may procrastinate, delay, or forget. But when you are told, you have 5 days, this window matters, your attention intensifies. Your mind enters a state of heightened awareness, and your actions carry greater weight. The limitation of time becomes a gift, because it awakens urgency and discipline. And discipline is the key that transforms fleeting thoughts into lasting change. So when you approach these days, do not treat them casually. Do not say, I will see if I feel like it. Treat them as sacred. Prepare your mind, prepare your space, and prepare your words. Align yourself with the current that is already moving, and you will find that what once felt impossible begins to shift. The heaviness that witchcraft represents, confusion, stagnation, invisible resistance, cannot withstand the clarity of a focused spirit moving with the tide of time. Remember this, you cannot stop the tide, but you can choose whether to stand still or to ride its force. From September 23rd to 27th, the tide is rising. Step onto it with intention, write with conviction, and let the current carry you beyond the chains of the past into the flow of abundance that awaits. Words are not as simple as we often imagine them to be. We grow accustomed to speaking casually, writing thoughtlessly, and repeating phrases without awareness. But the truth is that every word carries weight. A word is a container of energy, and when released, whether through sound or through writing, it vibrates into reality. The ancient traditions understood this well. They used chants, mantras, and inscriptions not as decoration, but as instruments of power. In our modern lives, this wisdom remains, though it is often hidden beneath the surface of everyday communication. When you write something down with intention, you are doing far more than moving ink across a page. You are bridging the invisible and the visible. A thought, as long as it remains in the mind, is fluid, intangible, easily forgotten. But once it is written, it acquires structure, it becomes anchored in the physical world, and it begins to echo back into your consciousness with greater authority. The act of writing is an act of manifestation. It takes what is internal and introduces it into form. This is why contracts are written, why sacred scriptures are preserved in words, and why even the smallest note can influence the way we think and feel. Think of how powerful it is when you see something in writing that concerns you personally. A letter of acceptance, a message of rejection, a written vow of love, or a harsh criticism. All these hold a potency beyond spoken words, because writing leaves a mark that cannot easily dissolve. In the same way, when you write your own intention to break free from witchcraft, from negative interference, from hidden limitations, you are leaving a mark that your own subconscious cannot ignore. The mind begins to take the message seriously, because it is no longer floating as a vague idea. It has been carved into the reality of your own life. The psychological effect is profound. Neuroscience shows us that the act of writing activates parts of the brain linked to memory, emotion, and learning in ways that typing or casual speaking cannot. Writing imprints, it deepens the association. So when you deliberately choose words of power, words of freedom, and inscribe them, you are training not only your mind but also your body and spirit to accept those words as truth. It becomes a command, not a wish. Witchcraft in its essence thrives on the distortion of words. It operates through curses, whispers, negative affirmations repeated in secret. Its energy is parasitic. It feeds on suggestion, confusion, and the subtle programming of the mind. But what is broken through dark words can be healed through words of light. When you write, you counteract the programming. You overwrite the script. You declare in unmistakable clarity that your spirit is free, your path is open, and wealth is flowing toward you. The timing of September 23rd to 27th magnifies this, as we have already spoken. Writing during this window is not simply an exercise, it is a ritual of declaration. It aligns your energy with the greater currents moving through this period of release and renewal. Imagine standing at a river's edge. If you whisper into the water, your voice fades. But if you carve words into the stone at the riverbank, they remain long after the water has passed. Writing is that carving. It is the way you make your intention endure, even as time continues to flow. And this is where discipline enters. Writing once may move you, but writing consistently, with focus, transforms you. Over these 5 days, your words become like seeds planted in fertile ground. Each repetition waters them, and the energy accumulates. You are not simply repeating affirmations, you are building a fortress of language around your spirit, one that no curse, no negativity, no hidden influence can penetrate. So I say to you, do not underestimate the pen, nor the page. Do not dismiss the simple act of writing as trivial. Within it lies the authority of creation. Speak your words, yes, but write them, and they become law. And when law is written, even the forces that work against you must bow to it. Remember this: the words you write are not waiting to be true. They are true the moment they are declared with intention. So write as though you are not asking, but commanding. Write as though you are not hoping, but knowing. And let every line be a seal that nothing can break. Witchcraft, when spoken of in this context, should not be reduced to images of superstition or folklore. It is not always a figure in the shadows performing rituals. More often, it is something subtler, something psychological, something energetic. Witchcraft shows itself in confusion that arises without cause, in opportunities that always seem to collapse just before they bear fruit, in heaviness that clings to the mind and body even when nothing is apparently wrong. It thrives in the unseen, in those quiet interferences that keep a person from moving forward. To break it, then, requires more than physical strength. It requires clarity, intention, and a method of reclaiming authority over your own life. The act of writing becomes this method. Writing is not just expression, it is focus. It gathers the scattered thoughts of the mind and channels them in a single direction. And when the intention behind that writing is to dismantle interference, it becomes a weapon of precision. Most people, when they feel trapped, fight back blindly. They argue with themselves, they complain to others, they react to the pressures they cannot explain. But reacting to confusion only deepens confusion. It is like wrestling with smoke. The harder you fight, the more exhausted you become. The power of writing is that it changes the dynamic entirely. You are no longer wrestling with the unseen. You are declaring the unseen has no authority. Think of a courtroom. When chaos reigns, the judge restores order not with fists but with words. A declaration is made, and suddenly the noise is silenced. In your own life, when interference builds, you take up the pen as that judge. You declare order. You state, clearly and without hesitation, that whatever has been binding you is broken. And by doing so repeatedly, with conviction, you shift the balance of energy from confusion to clarity. There is also a psychological dimension that must be understood. Witchcraft, in whatever form it appears, always seeks to instill doubt. It whispers, "You cannot, you will fail, you are cursed." These are not always audible words, but subtle impressions that wear down confidence over time. Writing, however, reprograms the mind. Each time you inscribe words of strength, you counter the quiet erosion of faith. You reinforce a new pattern: I can, I will, I am free. And once this pattern takes root, the old suggestions lose their grip. The very act of repeatedly focusing your mind in this way rewires your perception of yourself and your circumstances. Spiritually, the process runs even deeper. To write is to externalize intention. It is to take what exists within you and set it into the world where it cannot be ignored. That is why written prayers, written affirmations, written vows have always carried a certain weight. They are not floating thoughts, they are anchored declarations. In the same way, when you write that the influence of witchcraft is broken, you are carving this truth into the structure of your reality. The interference cannot remain, because your spirit has chosen a higher alignment and you have sealed it in tangible form. This is not about superstition, it is about authority. You do not need to fight shadows with shadows. You do not need to meet fear with fear. What you need is clarity strong enough to dissolve the fog. And clarity comes when you take the invisible and make it visible. When you take the vague pressure of interference and replace it with deliberate words of freedom. So during these days, do not only write for wealth, do not only write for opportunity. Write also for release. Write with the full conviction that what has hindered you cannot remain. And when the doubts rise, as they surely will, write again. Each word is like a strike that cuts through the web of interference until it collapses completely. Remember this: witchcraft loses its power the moment you refuse to play its game of confusion. With writing, you choose clarity over chaos, order over disorder, freedom over bondage. And once you have chosen, the interference cannot hold you. When people hear the word wealth, their minds almost instantly turn to money, to bank accounts, possessions, and external symbols of success. But if you think more deeply, you realize that this definition is narrow, incomplete, and even dangerous. True wealth is not a single coin, it is a flow. It is the current of life that moves through you and expresses itself in many forms: health, opportunities, creativity, resilience, wisdom, and yes, also financial abundance. To reduce wealth only to currency is like reducing the ocean to a single drop of water. You miss the immensity of what is actually available. The deeper truth is that wealth begins as energy. Before money can arrive in your hand, before opportunities can appear at your door, something has to shift within. If your spirit is blocked, if your mind is trapped in fear or scarcity, then even when opportunities come, you will not see them clearly, or you will not be able to hold on to them. This is why many people win money, or stumble into sudden fortune, and yet lose it just as quickly. The inner container was not strong enough to hold what arrived. Breaking witchcraft, therefore, is not only about removing interference, it is also about clearing the channels so that this energy of wealth can flow freely. Think of wealth as water in a river. If there are branches, rocks, and debris blocking the path, the river slows, pools, or even dries up. The water still exists, but it cannot reach you. Witchcraft, in this sense, is like the debris. It creates stagnation, delays, and scarcity. But when you write with intention, when you declare your freedom, you begin removing the obstructions. Suddenly the river moves again, and with it comes nourishment, growth, and renewal. That movement can manifest as financial opportunity, but also as a new connection, an idea, or a renewed strength in your body. Psychologically, redefining wealth in this way is liberating. Many people live in constant frustration because they measure their worth only by what they can count in numbers. They miss the wealth that already surrounds them, the knowledge they hold, the relationships that support them, the skills they can offer. When you shift your perspective, you stop living as a beggar and start living as someone already rich in essence. From this state, your actions are no longer driven by desperation, but by clarity, and clarity attracts. It is when you are no longer chasing money frantically that money begins to appear more naturally, because your energy has shifted from lack to abundance. Spiritually, this understanding of wealth is even more profound. To possess wealth as energy means you are never empty. Even when material possessions fluctuate, the source within remains unbroken. You are connected to the wellspring, not merely to the bucket. And when you know this, fear loses its grip. You stop asking, what if I lose everything? Because you recognize that wealth is not something you own, but something you align with. As long as you remain aligned, more can always flow to you. Writing during the days of September 23rd to 27th is a way to anchor this truth. When you write words of abundance, you are not creating something from nothing. You are opening channels that have always existed, but perhaps were blocked. You are instructing your mind to see wealth in its wider sense, and in doing so, you begin to notice opportunities that were invisible before. The same world that yesterday felt barren suddenly reveals itself as fertile. This is not because the world changed, but because you did. So when you write for wealth, do not limit yourself. Do not think only of a figure in a bank account. Write for wholeness, for freedom, for the energy of abundance in every dimension of your life. Write as someone who knows that money is simply one language through which wealth speaks, but never its only voice. Remember this: the richest person is not the one who has the most, but the one who is most aligned with the flow of abundance. When you understand wealth as energy, you stop grasping and start receiving. And once you receive, you will find that the flow does not end. It continues, because it was never outside you to begin with. Discipline is often misunderstood. People think of it as restriction, as something rigid and unpleasant. But in truth, discipline is freedom. It is the ability to guide your energy, rather than let your energy guide you. And when it comes to writing during this period, discipline is what transforms the act from a passing gesture into a powerful ritual. Writing once may feel good, it may inspire you for a moment, but consistency is what allows the message to take root in your mind, in your spirit, and in your reality. For these 5 days, September 23rd to 27th, the instruction is simple: write daily. Do not skip, do not postpone. Each day you return to the page, you are making a statement, not only to the universe, but to yourself, that you are serious about your freedom, serious about breaking interference, and serious about opening yourself to wealth. The simplicity of this practice is deceptive. It may look like 5 minutes with a pen, but what it represents is something far greater. It represents focus. It represents commitment. And focus combined with commitment is a force that cannot be ignored. Think of how habits are formed. A single act does not shape you, but repeated actions performed with awareness begin to carve pathways in your mind. Neuroscience tells us that repetition strengthens connections in the brain, until what was once effort becomes natural. In the same way, when you repeat your writing each day during this window, you are engraving the message not only on paper, but into the very structure of your being. You are training yourself to believe, to expect, and to act in alignment with the freedom and wealth you are declaring. There is also a symbolic dimension to the daily practice. By returning each day, you remind yourself that transformation is not instant gratification. Even when results can come quickly, the true shift is gradual, steady, and cumulative. Just as a seed does not become a tree in one night, your words grow in strength through repetition. On the first day you plant. On the second, you water. On the third, roots begin to stretch beneath the surface. By the fifth, something invisible has already changed, though you may not yet see the full growth. That is why it is important not to judge the process too quickly. You must trust that your daily writing is shaping something beyond your immediate perception. And notice also how the discipline affects your state of mind. Each time you set aside the moment to write, you are practicing presence. You are pulling yourself away from distraction, away from the noise of the world, and focusing on a single act that aligns with your deepest intention. In those minutes, you are no longer drifting, you are anchored. And that anchoring, repeated daily, creates stability. It builds inner order. And inner order is the foundation for outer change. Some may ask, what should I write? The truth is, the exact words matter less than the energy and clarity you bring to them. Write as one who commands, not as one who begs. Write words of release, words of wealth, words of freedom, and write them with the conviction that they are true in this very moment. The paper becomes a mirror, reflecting back to you the reality you are choosing to step into. So understand this: the power is not in writing once, but in returning again and again. Each line builds upon the last until the structure is unshakable. Each day strengthens the foundation until nothing can move it. Remember this: what you repeat becomes who you are. In these 5 days, let repetition become your ally. Write daily, write clearly, and write with conviction. And by the end, you will not only have broken interference, you will have built a new reality, one word at a time. Faith and discipline. These two are the invisible pillars upon which everything we have spoken rests. Without them, even the most powerful practice collapses. You may choose the right time, you may write the right words, you may perform the daily act, but if you do it without faith, it becomes empty repetition. And if you hold faith without discipline, It remains an untapped potential, like a fire that is never given wood to burn. It is when faith and discipline come together that transformation becomes inevitable. Faith is not blind belief, as many misunderstand it. Faith is clarity of vision in the face of the unseen. It is the ability to declare, though I do not yet see it, I know it is real. This type of knowing is what gives your words strength. It is what transforms writing from mere ink into spiritual authority. Without faith, the words feel hollow even to the one who writes them. But with faith, every line becomes alive. It carries conviction. It carries certainty. And conviction is what bends reality. At the same time, faith alone is not enough. Many people carry dreams in their hearts, yet their lives remain unchanged because they never take the disciplined steps that anchor those dreams into action. They believe, but they do not move. They hope, but they do not act. Discipline is the bridge between what you know to be true and what you are willing to live as true. It is not enough to declare once that witchcraft is broken, that wealth is released. You must discipline yourself to align with that declaration day after day, even when doubt whispers, even when nothing seems to change. Discipline says, I will return, I will persist, I will not break my rhythm. Psychologically, this is profound. The human mind craves consistency. It builds trust not only with others, but with itself through repetition. When you discipline yourself to act in alignment with your words, your mind begins to trust you. It says, yes, this person is serious. And that trust multiplies your faith, because you no longer feel that you are just saying words. You begin to feel that you are living them. This is where confidence is born, not from wishing, not from hoping, but from the steady rhythm of action fueled by faith. Spiritually, the union of faith and discipline is equally powerful. Faith opens the channel, discipline keeps it open. Faith declares that the river of abundance is flowing. Discipline builds the path for that river to reach you. Without faith, the path is dry. Without discipline, the river bypasses you. But together, they create a channel so strong that nothing can interfere. Witchcraft, confusion, stagnation. These forces cannot stand against a person who both believes and persists. And here lies a deeper truth: doubt will always appear. Resistance will always test you. But this is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of progress. The closer you come to freedom, the louder the resistance will try to speak. And in those moments, faith must steady you, and discipline must carry you. One keeps your heart clear, the other keeps your steps steady. Together they ensure you do not turn back. So when you write during these days, do not think of it as a casual exercise. Treat it as a sacred agreement between your faith and your discipline. Let your faith breathe life into your words, and let your discipline engrave them into your reality. When these two are joined, there is no force strong enough to bind you, no barrier heavy enough to stop you, no curse enduring enough to silence you. Remember this: faith gives you the vision, discipline gives you the path. One without the other leaves you incomplete. But together, they make you unstoppable.